Hey guys, T-Boy. Today I got to look at the Mutsu for it. It's a Tier 5 Japanese premium battleship. Here you can see my Takagi build. I run Kondo and Cunningham on that one. And first matchup we have is Trident Capture the Base mode game. I'll kind of go over the ship in general over this one without commenting too much on the game here. And then I do have another match that will kind of go over more of a play-by-play on it. So, what's the deal with the Mutsu? It's kind of a sister ship to the Nagato. It's got the Nagato's 410 caliber guns in a 4x2 array. And by the way, it has torpedoes. You have two single launches on each side. So, torpedoes, Nagato guns, tier 5, drop mic, right? The ship's crazy. Well, maybe. Maybe not. It has the highest HP total at the tier 2, 58.4. Next highest looks to be the Arizona at 57.2. Armor on paper it says 13 to 330. You know, the Bayern has 13 to 350. These little armor ranges don't mean a whole lot. We don't have an armor view in the game yet, but after playing, I think I've played about 15 games on the ship, give or take. My suspicions were aroused. I mean, the armor is it's fairly weak, yeah, I mean, let's just put it that way. But my suspicions were aroused, so I just asked the guys on my Discord before I started recording this to check the deck armor for me. And it's 25 across the board. Now, what does that mean functionally for the gameplay? Well, HE shells penetrate 1/6 of their caliber, so 25 times 6, 150. So if you have a 150 millimeter gun shooting this, the HE shells will actually penetrate the deck armor. In addition to doing their fire chance, they're actually going to be penetrating, and you're going to be getting those damage values that are listed under the HE. So, what ships have 150 millimeter guns at tier 5? Try all of the cruisers. Try the Graf Spee. Alright. What other ships have 150 millimeter guns? Try all of the tier 4 cruisers. So you get 2-3 ships focusing you with HE on this thing, you'll be gone very shortly, as I believe we'll probably see in these matches. You know, if you see one of these things and you're in a cruiser, just switch over to HE and melt it. I mean, that's the bottom line. Side armor, not very impressive. Going against tier 5, tier 6 battleships, you cannot show broadside. This is an angler's battleship, and even then you're going to be taking some damage. You take a shot in the side with those the high caliber battleship guns, you're going to absolutely get wrecked. So this thing is pretty fragile in terms of battleships. So, you know, you got to be playing it carefully. If you get focused down, you're going to get melted. I mean, I've had a few games that were around 100k. As the week goes on, I keep playing with more. Maybe I'll put up some barn burners. I don't know. We'll see. But there was just a brief look at the torpedoes. We'll talk about the torpedoes. But the thing is with this ship, I mean, you got to play it well and you got to play it smart, because if you're getting focused down by players that know how to aim, you're going to get absolutely wrecked. I mean, here I'm showing fairly large amounts of broadside just looking at the screen. If those ships shot at me here, I would be absolutely wrecked. Alright, what else is going on with this? We got 410 millimeter guns, right? Massive guns. Yes, if you land shots on this thing, you could potentially be doing some big damage. I've had games, multiple devastating strikes. Usually you're going to get those against cruisers. The shells that are being fired from these guns are earlier World War I versions of the shells. And looking at the sheet that I was provided, there's about 50 millimeters less of penetration on these guns than the Fuso. So the Fuso, well, the caliber's lower, 356 compared to 410. The penetration is actually better on the Fuso, and I didn't have a chance to check all the ships, but I suspect all the tier 5 battleships, perhaps not the Bayern. I haven't looked that close to that ship yet because I don't have it, but penetration on the low side for the Mutsu. If you get the damage, it's going to absolutely wreck. You got 13,392 on my build, compared to the next highest is the Queen Elizabeth and the Warspite, 12,312. So you're getting about over 1,000 more in potential AP damage. But again, limited penetration. So against battleships, unless you're getting into the close range, you got to be shooting upper hull superstructure. Cruisers, go ahead and shoot for the water line. If you hit them, you're going to blow the ship up, no doubt. But this is not a... Because of all these things, it's not an easy ship to play. Yeah, you can maybe hop into it and get some easy games here and there against players that aren't playing very well. But ships that are angling properly, ships that are actually shooting back at you, you know, all these things are kind of drags on the Mutsu's performance. Torpedoes, right? Pretty sweet. Well, you saw the launch angles on these things. They're really covering about the middle third on each side. So they don't have rearward firing torps that can cover you when you're kiting away. They don't have forward firing torps that can cover you when you're pointing in on a target. You got to really basically expose a lot of broadside. So they come into play once in a while. I played roughly 15 games. I think I was able to launch a successful torp strike against like a Nuremberg that was kind of, you know, being a little too aggressive. And a lot of ships, or a lot of players aren't going to really know what to expect. They're not suspecting torps coming out of any battleships except for a couple of the German ones at this point. So you might catch people unaware early on, and obviously there's going to be a lot of inexperienced players throughout the life of the game that don't really know what to expect from ships that aren't very common. But experienced players should be able to mitigate the torpedo threat very quickly. Again, if you decide you're going to point broadside to launch these things, ships can absolutely punish you. So, you know, the torps, you know, they can work, but I definitely wouldn't rely on them. They're very situational in that manner. Speed's really good for the tier. It's the fastest, 24.6 in my build. Turning circle, horrendous, 770, worse at the tier. So that's more in line of your average tier 6 battleship in terms of the turn circle. Firing range, 17.4 compared to 18.4 on the Fuso. So you got still really long range. That's the second longest on my builds on my spreadsheet of the ships currently available. And frankly, I mean, you got to play the ship long range. I mean, again, you can have a oddball game here or there where people don't really know what's going on, but you know, over the course of 10-20 games, I mean, if you're not playing it long range, I don't see it having a lot of success. So that's in line with the Japanese battleships. And in fact, if you like Japanese battleships, I suspect you'll probably like the Mutsu. I mean, it is a fun ship to play. It's really fun to get these devastating strikes against cruisers, and you do land Citadel-esque damage when you're shooting these upper hull superstructure shots into battleships. So, you know, 10, 15k volleys, not uncommon. You just saw me take a torp there. The torp armor on this thing is pretty bad for the tier. You got 22% torp reduction compared to the Fuso 34, 40 New Mexico, Queen Elizabeth 28, Baron looks like it's 19, but that's unupgraded hull, so I'm assuming that'll be higher once I get that ship and fully unlock it and update the stats. So getting torped in this thing is a problem, and that just kind of adds into the long distance philosophy. But if you're in a situation where your side melts or your team abandons you on a side, I mean, this is not a durable ship that can handle those situations very well, so you're going to need to essentially flee. The concealment on the ship isn't that great. I got 13.5 on mine. You did notice I have Kondo, which that brings it down pretty good compared to a lot of my ships, but I haven't fully adopted a Kondo build on all my lines yet. Americans, I have Lee at level 8, so I don't have a second commander there. I'm kind of integrating him into the British battleships with some success. And, you know, the Baron, again, I don't have a commander on that ship, and I don't have upgraded hulls, so those stats are hard for me to compare. So I think it's a hard ship to play. You know, if you're going to buy your first premium, this would not be my recommendation. You know, just, you got to be able to angle, you got to know a lot of the game mechanics to do well in it. So keep that in mind. But it is a fun ship to play. I mean, fans of Japanese battleships, I think, will enjoy it. Alright, so next up we got a match on Two Brothers here. Capture the Base mode game. This map I really enjoy if people play it properly. 9 times out of 10 they really don't. Which makes it one of the more frustrating maps just because you can't really do anything. You can't influence the match really aside from whichever side you're on, so that kind of limits your ability to quickly react to a situation. But normally, if I could deploy the entire fleet here, you'd want destroyers in front. You want to pick those little islands that are flanking for cruisers, kind of get behind them. The destroyers should spot targets. Cruisers can lob shells over those, rely on the islands for cover. And then battleships should be kind of in the rear supporting those ships, which is kind of the layout. A lot of people are always asking me about positioning, and that's kind of your, I don't want to say generic, but that's your standard positioning for each map. Destroyers need to be in the front. If destroyers are in the back, you're worthless. Don't play destroyers. Cruisers, if you're just sitting in the base here on this map, you're not going to be effective. Yeah, I understand people try and cruise up the little canal or whatever you want to call it up the middle. But both sides, assuming you don't push forward too aggressively, you should still be able to cover that fairly well. So pushing through the middle is not very effective until later in the game when the sides are whittled down, because you're going to have ships flanking the mouth of, both sides of that mouth that can just kind of turn their guns and blast you. So I don't really advocate pushing through the middle early, and I don't really advocate committing your ship to just defending that, because it should be able to be defended from more forward positions that can also influence the sides, which is important, because if you sit back in this map, you're just going to absolutely get obliterated. Now you can see right off the bat we're taking fire damage, and we're taking damage from those HE shells, and this is what I'm getting, this is what I alluded to earlier. 25mm armor appears to be the values across the deck, which again, that means 150mm or above actually penetrates the deck and does significant amounts of damage, in addition to the fire starting chance. And there's an example of the damage that you can do in the ship. So even though that ship was fairly well angled, if you're aiming up more, you can get these shells in there. If they penetrate, they're going to do damage. If they don't penetrate, they're not going to do damage. Surprise, surprise. But that's just kind of the name of the game of the ship. It can be a little frustrating at times if you are either missing shots or they're kind of not going through because of the lower penetration values, but that's just the name of the game. It's a tier 5 ship. It has tier 6 guns, so there's a lot of limiting factor. There's a lot of balancing built into that. I mean, it's just not a straight up Nagato that just happens to be in the wrong tier. So don't buy the ship if that's your impression of it, because you're going to be disappointed, and it really shouldn't take too long to figure that out. I mean, like I say, when the shells go in, I mean, they go in. So I mean, this Pensacola's turning broadside here, and we're able to lead them a little bit, but that's what I'm talking about. I mean, especially cruisers, you can get them from most angles. If you drop them through the deck, if you hit them in the side, if you punch them in the nose, whatever you want to do, they're going to have a bad time doing it. So cruisers need to be very wary of the Mutsu. Battleships, if you play well against the Mutsu, I haven't played against it yet. I've been at work today, so I didn't get a lot of time to play, but when I did, I was playing this ship, so I haven't played against it yet, but I think cruisers spamming HE against it will be very effective. I think battleships shooting HE in the sides will be very, very effective, and frankly, I don't think I'm that afraid of this ship, which is why, if I was doing recommendations for like ranked, I doubt I would put this in. Again, this is my early impression, so I'll continue to play it, and we'll probably do more videos as the week goes on, just to kind of continue to evaluate it. But I'm just trying to tamp down a little bit of the excitement that you may have just looking at the ship on paper. And you can have some good games, I mean, don't get me wrong, but it takes an understanding of the game mechanics, which I don't, at least my early impression leads me to believe this isn't the most user-friendly, or the new player-friendly ship. Get a salvo off in this low health guy. He dodged it right at the end there, so good job to him. He prolonged his life there. But, yeah, I mean, like I said earlier, I think it's a good ship. It's a fun ship to play. Right there's a good look at all the secondaries. This has quite a bit of secondaries. I haven't gotten rushed yet too often, but when you do, it kind of reminds me of Amagi, and I guess it's Nagato, which also has a lot of secondaries. Japanese brawler ships, despite them having a lot of secondaries, I don't recommend speccing them out as brawling builds. They tend to be less armored. This ship, that problem's exasperated just because it's the early version of the hull. It's not the fully upgraded Nagato hull. But just in general, having played the Japanese battleships a lot, and it's probably my most played battleship line, long range, you know, that's kind of their sweet spot. So we're just looking around on the map here, looking for broadside targets, and this is kind of Battleship 101. Battleships require a lot of map awareness. You got to be sighting targets. You'll notice I was taking some shots from behind that island, and keep an eye on the damage. That this is that Marblehead, which is fail platooned into this tier. I believe it's a tier 6 game, unless I wasn't paying that close attention. But regardless, I mean, he'll be landing damage here, and you know, the fire starting chance. Keep in mind with these builds and the replays you're watching, my Takagi build has the trade-off on perk 1, I believe, that it's like a 20% increase to the chance that you're going to get set on fire, to increase, I believe, its accuracy and range. And as a side note, I think it was in the Q&A, but wherever I saw it, I saw someone from Wargaming say that they're going to kind of cut down on some of those penalties that are inherent in some of those perks. So I expect there to still be some trade-off perks, but I don't think they're going to be as onerous. So a lot of people, when I put my Takagi build video up there, they thought I was kind of crazy putting a 20% fire chance on my ship. I don't know what it is. Most Japanese battleships, I don't seem to get set on fire that often. This one I do quite a bit for whatever reason. So I don't know if the ship itself has a higher chance to get set on fire than your typical Japanese battleship. But my builds the other Japanese battleships, I don't have a problem running this perk. This one I would turn it off if I had a dedicated build just for this one. But again, come Monday next week, we will see what kind of changes they have to those perks. I think it's going to be less onerous and less punitive, so hopefully that's the case. Because I mean, willingly adding a 20% fire chance on your ship is kind of nuts. And like, for instance, the British battleships, and there's another look at the torpedo arcs, by the way. The British battleships do have a higher chance to get set on fire, so I wouldn't be extremely hesitant to put that on Cunningham, even though I probably do have it on Cunningham, but you know. Anyway, this is neither here nor there, but if you watch this in the future, maybe that won't be as big of an issue. So here's the Marblehead. He's coming in again. This guy, the Marblehead is a very dangerous ship. My highest game I ever had in terms of XP was in the Marblehead. And unfortunately, I was attempting to save it, but I just saved the screenshot of the game recap instead of saving the video, which caused me to wail in angst. But I think it was like 43, 44. I've had 3 games in 4,000 XPs, 2 of them in the Gross and 1 of them in the Marblehead, so this is one of those ships that if you run into it, just shoot it. You need to kill this thing. I mean, it's doing work on me here, and you can see, I mean, like, there it is. I mean, if you hit those cruisers, they got them, you know. That's all there is to it. So cruisers definitely need to be wary of the Mutsu. Battleships, I think if you angle properly against them. Not to say those shells can't ever go in, because they can go in against angle battleships, but that's going to lessen the impact, and in return you're more likely to do damage to them. Like, here's an angled shot. That's a very well angled battleship in my opinion. He was able to just punch through and wreck me there. So that's my look at the Mutsu early impression. Hope you did enjoy it. If you did, please hit the thumbs up. New to the channel, consider subscribing. A lot of World of Warships coming all the time. Questions, comments, leave them below. Love to hear from you guys. And we'll see y'all later. Alright, peace.